Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Rarely are the lives of lower middle-class Americans explored with such detail, subtlety, and sincerity as in Kent Jones's new film, Diane. In it, Mary Kay Place plays Diane, a woman struggling to keep it together while also dealing with her drug-addicted son, ailing family members, and her own past secrets. Let's take a look.
Going down a hard road. Don't know where I've been. Can't even find a friend.
Oh, look who's here. How are you doing?
We're getting by.
It's your turn.
I'm listening to your story.
Well, multitask.
Okay.
Mom, what are you doing here?
I'm making sure you're alive. Take a shower and get cleaned up.
What? You just come over to stare at me now?
As cheerful as ever.
Feeling okay?
I'm fine.
Liar.
What, you think we're all gonna live forever? Here we go. Well, pardon me.
I just want to know, for once and for all, do you forgive me or not?
I forgave you, but I haven't forgotten. Hi, Mom.
How do you feel?
This time's different.
I can see that.
Diane, you need some peace. You take the time, get yourself together, and come out when you're good and ready.
Done some damage in my life.
You're not alone, honey.
Everybody, please welcome Jake Lacy and Kent Jones. Let's hear it. Hey, thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations on the film. I thought it was beautiful, and I thought it was heartbreaking, and it's one of the hardest, in my opinion, one of the hardest kinds of movies to make, which is one that is not going for jokes, is not going for massive dramatic moments. It's trying to find the drama and the story in very small details between people that are just trying to get by. A lot of people try to make movies like this, but it's really difficult to have the bravery to commit to the subtlety of a story like this. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's talk about how hard it was for you to make this movie. When you sit down to write a story like this, do you find it is natural for you, or are you a person who has seen so many movies that it is, because I know that you are a huge cinephile, you've been doing what I do right now for a long period of your life. Is it hard for you to remove those influences so that you can sort of write from your subconscious and write cleanly?
No, in the sense that that's what I knew making a movie was. And so it took me, I took a different route, the scenic route, I guess, to making a narrative movie. I've made documentaries before. But I think, no, that's not movie making. Movie making, all that knowledge and having that storehouse of movies was helpful in a nuts and bolts way. But when you're making it, you just got to respond to absolutely everything and create space for, Jake, Mary Kay to build and bring their characters in every moment alive.
Where did Diane come from?
It came from my own personal experience. The first, inkling of it was when I was a teenager, really, when all of my great aunts and uncles were still alive. And then it kind of grew in my mind over the years and became a story of a mother and son. I had a very close friend who went through the experience of addiction and recovery, like Jake's character. And then when I saw The Rainmaker by Coppola, the Grisham movie, Mary Kay's performance in that as the mother of the boy who's dying of cancer really startled me. And I thought, that's who I'm going to write this for. And I never had anybody else in mind.
Well, there is such a showcase of women, of wonderful actresses who are of a certain age. You have Mary Kay, you have Estelle Parsons.
Yeah.
when you started writing this, were you thinking to yourself, wow, there's this sort of like, there's all these great actresses who probably aren't getting used as much as they'd like to or should be getting used, and they have all this incredible talent. I'm going to make a movie for them.
That was my hope. I mean, I wrote a lot of parts for older women, it's true, but I didn't think to myself, won't it be great to give parts to X, Y, and Z, actors? And then when I was able to actually work with, like, Andrea Martin, I mean, this is somebody I've worshipped I could do every SCTV skit for you now, right now. We could probably do
let's
something.
go.
Yeah, okay, here we go. This is Albo's tiny town. But, Joyce Van Patten, Estelle, who I saw on stage when I was 7 years old, growing up in the Berkshire, she spent a lot of time there with Arthur Penn. I don't know. It was just, that was an amazement to me and a joy.
Going back to the writing of this, and not to praise you too much, although I'm sure you'll like it.
Tone it down. Yeah.
How do you know when you're writing some of these scenes that you have something that is captivating and entertaining? You do, as a viewer, I was captivated and entertained, but at the same time, when you were writing, as you said, you're not going for the easy joke. You're not going for the thing that on paper may read as obviously entertaining.
I think that when people are together, it's inherently, you put two people together in a room and it's inherently interesting. But you have to know what's interesting. You have to build from it, and you have to have the confidence to not want to gild the lily with surefire stuff. So, in other words, like, there was one moment, Mary Kay and Andrea are both comic geniuses, and so there was a moment when the two of them are sitting there together in a restaurant, and they both knocked on wood at the same time perfectly, in perfect common timing. It would have been great to use it, but it wasn't right for the moment, right. And so I think that it's a matter of having the confidence to not go for what seems like a surefire thing, but that breaks out of the reality of where the real action is.
Jake, this is your second role, almost in a row, really, of playing an addict. Is that just happenstance, coincidence?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't tell my reps, like, seek out drug-addicted roles.
Hey, I love this. Get me another one.
Yeah, I'm so into my own personal demons right now. Let's really cash in
on
on
the screen.
Yeah. Yeah, let's commit this. Yeah.
Was there a part of you that was hesitant when you first got the script because you had been playing an addict already?
No. I guess because I don't think in terms like that. Like I for multiple reasons. One being, like, I'm not at a place where I'm just, like, flooded with offers and, like, batting away roles because I'm to this or I'm to that. Like, I'm thrilled to work on things that are good, and both of these roles separately, I really wanted to be a part of, and then was lucky enough to be asked to be in it, And so I didn't have a concern of some sense of doubling up or,
They're very different kinds of portrayals of addiction as well.
Thank you.
Socioeconomic status, as well as like where those people are, kind of like, or how the style of the movie is addressing or show is addressing that person who is addicted.
Yeah, there's also I was on a show called I'm Dying Up Here, and I play a stand-up who's also a heroin addict.
Great show, by the way.
Thank you very much. And that, to me, was more an exploration of this public and personal need or desire for love and acceptance in the way that drugs and entertainment and your own mind and public applause, like, plays into how we need to be loved. And the show helped explore that as well. And that's what interested me about that. About Brian within Diane, I was born in Western Mass and I grew up in Vermont, and those places are currently ravaged by opioid addictions, either of prescription pills or heroin. And really wanted to be a part of something that showcased as a perverse term, but more shone a light on that as a life and not as a grotesque, like, freak show thing that was like, come see the junkies. But it's more like, this is what it looks like when someone's on drugs a lot. And this is what it looks like when their mother tries to deal with that. And this is what it looks like when people don't have the tools to move forward in a way that's as healthy as they'd like to be. And I just wanted to be a part of that.
One of the things that I really liked about your character and the writing of it was that you didn't shy away from the indulgence of addiction and of addictive personalities. And I think that's one thing that oftentimes storytellers are really scared of addressing and putting into those characters, because they want the addict to be shown as solely a product of the narcotic rather than possibly a product of their own inabilities to cope in a lot of ways with the world, which causes bullying, which causes a certain amount of narcissism that comes out of this character. Can you talk about writing that for the character?
That's a really good point, and it's something that very often in movies, when you're dealing with junkies, you get something that skews in the direction of the romantic kind of beautiful loser, or in the direction of the tragic, but it misses precisely what you're talking about, which is the individual personality behind, and so, I think that was something that when we met, we connected on right away, and that was something that Jake understood immediately, that was what we were going for.
So much to the point where even when he gets clean, he still has this sort of selfishness and this indulgence. Was that something that, as much as you said that as an actor you wanted to sort of portray and give voice to the people of this community that both actually were from, that you, was there any fear that you had about portraying this person as indulgent and as selfish as they are?
Yeah. Yes. I think to me, the saving grace of that is then this scene later where Brian comes to Diane's house with a half-finished beer, and in not these terms, but is some sense of like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I haven't known what I'm doing, but I know I'm done blaming you, and I know I'm sick of blaming you. So I don't know what that looks like from here on out, but I don't know what this is. And so that created like a freedom to then pursue fully his attempts at this sober life and the religious element that comes into it and his fervor for it, or his belief that everybody should get on board with the way he sees things, is that, I mean, I do that in my own life where I really hardline into this vein, not in a maybe full lifestyle change, but just being like, I'm going to be this person now. Right. And 6 months later look back and be like, what the fuck was I doing? Like that, it's not who I am, and that the script and the story allowed for that commitment, because he also then commits to saying like, I don't know what I've been doing. Maybe for the last year and maybe for the last 15 years. I just don't know how to do this thing.
But then at the same time, within that moment, that scene that you're referring to, and trying to be kind of coy about it because it is the end of the movie and people haven't seen it, there is even an indulgence and a selfishness within that act. It's a confessional act where he is trying to pull something from her that he feels like he needs, rather than really giving her maybe what she needs.
Yes, it's like, can you absolve me of my dependence on you to be the problem?
I just had this insight, here it is.
Yes.
Gotta go.
And can you validate it for me so I can be clear of this? As opposed to like, are you good? What do you need? Like that never, Brian is yet, as we see him, to reach this place that's like, I mean, Mary Kay said it in this way that I was kind of blown away by, because we didn't speak about it during the filming of this, but she's like a woman who is continually in the service of others and doesn't learn until maybe the end. It's people's choice as to whether she learns that. But people are rarely in the service of her. And like Brian never achieves that. Brian never gets to this place where he says like, what can I do for you? Yeah. It's continually, what can you give me, Mom?
But he's able to share that one moment of insight with her and bring her that, in the same way that Tom, the character, in the earlier scene, is able to say, I don't know what you think of yourself, but you're whenever you serve me, I feel sanctified. And incidentally, the actor who played the role of Tom passed away in December. Charles Weldon. He was a great guy, great human being, great actor.
Ken, you have been you've worked at you've been a film programmer for so long. You've made documentaries about movies. This is your first fiction film. Why now? Had you always been wanting to make a fiction film, or is this something that you started writing and you couldn't help but make it?
No. I've always been aimed at making a fiction film. I suppose that in a weird way, I wanted to wait without articulating it to myself until I was at a moment when I would be able to make the kind of film that I wanted to make, which I wouldn't have been able to make when I was younger.
Why is that?
Oh, if I had started when I was in my 20s, I probably would have made a movie with lots of references to, Orson Welles and Jean-Luc Godard. It's something that, or gone at it with more self-consciousness. And I think that I knew that wasn't how movies were made. I'm not knocking references to other movies. That's fine. But I knew that at the core, that's not how they're made. So, no, I had always been aimed at it. Always.
In casting Mary Kay, what kind of conversations did you have with her about the character and how you were going to be making this sort of ultra naturalistic film?
Well, I met her up in the Berkshires, actually. By the way, we're all from the same part of the world, right? All three of us.
That's right. You're from the Berkshires as well,
I'm from
yeah.
Berkshires, Western Massachusetts. Woo.
Good vibes.
Kumbaya. So
Great place.
It's amazing.
Place.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We're all doing pretty well. We're all here.
Yeah, we
You know
are.
what I mean? Well,
Yeah.
shout out for Western Mass.
That's
Turning
right.
down my college, but it's fine. Great place.
Yeah. What's your college?
Hampshire.
Okay, there you go.
Wait, what do you mean? That's like
No, it's amazing.
No, it's great.
It's amazing. I love Hampshire.
to me
It's
that
great.
sounded like
Greatest,
of course they're shutting it down.
greatest
They're-
college in the world. Is it really shutting down? I didn't know that.
It's a whole thing. We'll talk about it.
Okay, we
later.
won't
I
talk
should
about it here.
reference
So anyway, Mary Kay and I met in the Berkshires because there's a film festival up there, and we go to that film festival every year. And I said at the end of the weekend, I said, "Look, this is what I have in mind." She was like, "Well, that's very flattering, And she said, anxious to read the script. I sent her another script that I had wrote. She liked it very much. I must say that I really wasn't able to write the first draft of Diane properly until after my mother had passed away. That's very personal reasons. There's a lot of my mother in the character. And then Mary Kay was very nervous when she got it. She thought, gee, I hope I like this. And, she did. And
How do you tell somebody who says I wrote this for you that
sorry.
I assume you just avoid them.
Yeah, better luck next time.
Did you get a chance to read? Did you get a?
Yeah.
I just never heard back.
I know.
Is it?
Yeah, it was very interesting.
New phone, who dis?
Yeah, that was very interesting. I hope it works out. So she did love it, and then we went through the process of talking about it and things, rewriting, and then casting the rest of the movie. And I was really lucky enough to cross paths with Jake because truly right off the bat, I had already admired his work a lot in Obvious Child, which I think we had actually given a prize to it in Berkshires like the year before or something like that. And so, but I really consider myself fortunate because I knew right away that he was on the wavelength of that character, and that we were going to find what we needed. And by the way, dude, you said before, you're not in a position yet where you're not batting away offers. You should be, because if somebody's lucky enough to work with you, they're lucky.
What was your biggest fear going into making your first fiction film? Like which part of the process were you most nervous about?
I don't know. The thing is that it's like the fear, the anticipation, the preparation. It's all kind of part of the same thing. When I made Hitchcock Truffaut, there was a recording that I found of Francois Truffaut very close to the end of his life, and he said, when you're making a movie, it's like you're going into a fugue state, and that's true. I don't remember how much or how little I slept. I couldn't tell you. You just go into it, and the intimidation of the the trucks and all the people and the equipment and all that is like a very real thing. But then you're just like, well, you just do it anyway.
You still got to make your day.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to walk away from it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't...
This is too intimidating. Bring the trucks back.
Yeah, I'm
guys.
feeling like I need a moment alone with a teddy bear. And you also kind of like, if you feel... I had a moment when I was just like, oh, gee, I don't know if I'm up for this. And then I had an insight. I was just like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, I've got to do it anyway. Right. So, and it was great to work with a limited... I mean, the days that we had were the days that we had. That was our framework, and that was...
How many days did you have?
20.
That's not... I mean, that's really short. But, that's not... I've heard recently, 17, 15, 16 from people, and I'm just like, I don't even understand.
It's brutal.
How you do that.
To work with less than 20, I would say. But, I mean, the importance...
That's rough. I'm just putting that together. I'm like, that's like, you're fucking, that's crazy.
Yeah.
16 days.
I mean,
for
what would you...
feature film.
Yeah. And you have to just be working night and day and off the union.
That's got to be one location, really.
Yeah, with a gimbal, right? Just everything shot on a gimbal.
That's wild.
I don't know how...
Actually, was it... I think High Flying Bird... The Soderbergh movie was recently I think it was less than 20 days.
Okay.
But I mean,
I haven't seen that yet. But Soderbergh is
Yeah.
into experiments like that and knows how to do them.
Right.
So
This is not a comparison of any way.
Yeah, he's choosing.
Hey man, don't throw me in the bus with that guy. That's the last place I want to be.
Soderbergh.
I don't know, Ken. Soderbergh did it in 15 days. 20? It seems like he had some luck.
15 hours.
Oh my
15 hours.
God.
I'll have a feature film for you. Starting now.
When you got onto set, I mean, you've talked to tons of directors in the way that I have. You've worked closely with some of the great directors on projects. When you got onto the set with the actors like Jake and Mary Kay, and you're doing a scene with them, what did you know going into it that would help you? What did you know not to do? What were you most scared of when you're dealing with actors?
I wasn't scared when I was dealing with actors. One thing I knew was that, I've heard stories about actors who just didn't get on the same wavelength with their director, right? As far as I'm concerned, that's the director's fault. Right. If you can't figure out how, and your job is not to keep saying the same thing to the actor until they get on your wavelength. Your job is to keep saying it differently until you're working with the actor in a way that that they need. So I think that's something that I went in understanding. I'd had a little bit of experience with acting myself in the deep, distant past, back in the 1820s or something. And so I just
Acting yourself?
I myself had some experience, not with acting the part of myself, but with acting. I mean, myself. And so I think, but also, I don't know, that's like with the kitchen scene where there are a lot of people around the table. I just had to dive in there and say, okay, here's what everybody is in relation to everybody else. And, I remember Estelle Parsons said, she tells a story in that scene, and it's in the end very funny. And she said, "You want me to say this whole thing, Kent?" And I was like, "Yep, I do." And she just did it, 37 times. I mean, she was absolutely amazing. 89 years old, now 91, I think.
Jake, when you sit down and talk to a director before even getting on set, can you get a sense that they're going to be comfortable and easy to work with, and they're going to know how to work with actors?
Probably yes to the first and no to the second in a way, because you don't know till you're doing the thing. You know what I mean? Mostly, I feel like just an ability to sit with a person and be like, oh, we have a common language, or an ability to reach one another in a way that matters, in a way that would potentially facilitate creating something, or in understanding the needs or wants that both of us have to create this thing together, and saying like, what, for me on set, there's a mix of saying like, what are you hoping this is? How can I help be of service to this so that the story that we're telling is the story you set out to tell, and also communicating like, hey, for me, this moment bumps a little. Is there a way we can sand this down so that it's a little easier for me to get into that next moment? Like, can you help me with that? And so initially trying to find that connection to be able to just be present with one another and find a thing where you can go like, oh, we could do a little dance. We could figure this thing out together. And then in terms of being able to work with actors or facilitating something, I think in my experience, you just have to hope that that first piece leads into the next. Because you don't really know until you get there and are starting to build the thing how that goes. And then you sort of adjust from there. But there's only been really in my experience, one time where like I was interested in a project, maybe twice, sat with a director, and then questioned, like, not the project, thinking this person's an idiot or something, but just being like, oh, I don't know if I'm the guy for this. I don't know if, like, you and I are seeing things the same way or speak the same language enough to make something that we both feel is of value in some world. But certainly felt that way with Ken. I think we both had ridden our bikes to the meeting. One from like uptown all the way down, and I had ridden like across the bridge, over to the west side. Yeah. And that was just a very small moment where you're like, oh, you also rode here.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we're both pouring sweat. Like, I love this restaurant.
Summer. Yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah.
These crab cakes are good. But then also, I must say that, a shared...
So from the valley.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Of course.
From the valley, crabs straight from the lake. But also, a shared fondness for James Brown definitely helps.
There's a running...
And so that was something that we found.
YouTube video that really saved a lot of dark days on set.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a great James Brown YouTube video, rest in peace, where he's fresh out of jail.
Is this the one where he's on like CNN?
Yes, and they're asking about assault allegations, and he keeps quoting his own lyrics.
Oh, it's the best.
And they're saying, "What do you think about these assaults?" And he keeps saying, "Like, Papa's got a brand new bag." Like, okay, very cool.
Sex machine.
Yeah. I feel good.
Like, what about these assault allegations? He's like, sex machine.
What do you say to your fans? He's like, I make love good. You're like, oh, okay.
That is a classic
musical legend.
Oh my God.
A very
I carried his bags for him once.
Did you really?
Oh my God, it was amazing. Yeah, no, it was one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And then my friend and I hung out outside and just waited for him to come out and carried his bags for him to the car. Thank you.
Did he say thank you?
Yeah, sure. No, he was lovely.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
At least.
This is, yeah.
It would be darkness, like not darkness, but you're just mired in like
the
small town drug addiction and feeling like there's no way out.
That apartment was was not.
Yeah, we shot in an apartment
place. I mean, even when it wasn't dressed up.
I think the landlord was able to clear the previous tenants out pretty quickly because
that was rough.
Maybe they hadn't paid rent in quite a while.
Yeah,
right. But then you just hear like from the back someone be like, Papa's got a brand new bag. Like, okay, we're making a movie. No, but okay, it's going to be all right.
And then also the people downstairs, there was we were just like, saying to the landlord, gee, I hope we don't make too much noise for the people downstairs. She's like, I don't care about those people. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting.
I think we have time for a couple questions. Who has a question? Right here. Hi.
Hi. I was wondering what type of research went into like creating a story like this or portraying a role like that, and how did you find that balance between like working off the stories of other people and making it your own?
Well, Jake and I went out and scored some dope, and then we didn't. For me, it came from the whole story came from people that I knew, and including the character of Brian, a very close friend of mine, went through the experience of addiction, recovery, and then the addiction took another form after the drugs were done.
Yeah, for me, I have, without like being too revealing, have experience in my own life with addiction issues, and then getting cleaned up from that, and so did not relate to the direct circumstance that Brian is in, but definitely understood my own experience of sorrow and sadness and fear and wanting to escape and get out and not having tools to do that in a way that wasn't self-destructive, and then also the cycle of like shame and self-pity and entitlement that is the flip side to that kind of like wraps back into that in my experience. So there was a bit of that, and then also an attempt to understand like the pain of this guy. Like what's the specific thing that this person feels like they've missed out on, or that they don't have, or that they won't get back, and what they're doing to not feel that way. Yeah. Which takes a couple of different. Remember? Yeah, the drawings in the in his apartment are his. There was a discussion that Brian had like been enrolled in art school, and that started to fall apart, and that coincided with this drug abuse, and that sort of crumbled, and so he still has a vision of himself as potentially an artist, a person who's going to create these things, and yet is pretty firmly rooted on a couch, pretty firmly rooted in a bathroom, can't seem to like get himself into creating a thing. Trying to find like that and root it in like what he wishes he had, because nobody walks around being like, I'm hopeless, I'm dog shit, and I should die. Like, I think I'll go do drugs. Yep. It's like
I do drugs.
No one's
that's
like,
who I am.
Well, tell me about yourself. I do drugs.
I do drugs. Yeah.
Desperately do drugs. Like, we're all like trying to find a way above the thing, even if we don't know what the thing is. You're just trying to find this way to like manage to exist, to be like, I don't want to feel that I hate myself all the time. So I can accept the person I am and be okay with it and have compassion, or I can find a way to check out. And unfortunately for Brian, he finds this way to check out. But I hope that answers your question in some long form manner. Okay.
Thank you.
One more.
Hi. I have a question for Kent. You have experience in documentaries, and I was wondering if in your first narrative feature, if any of that sort of approach to documentaries or style, if that's the right word, affected how you did this narrative.
Well, I mean, I can answer that question in two ways. The documentaries that I've made have been documentaries about cinema and about filmmakers, right? So the last documentary that I made was about Alfred Hitchcock and Francois Truffaut and their conversation together. Alfred Hitchcock is a great teacher. His films are great teachers. He was, in the way that he explains filmmaking, he's a great teacher as well. He said many things that are, very worth listening to. For instance, like, it doesn't matter what the feeling is on the set. What matters is what's there in that frame, That's really, really important. It's great to have a good feeling on the set, so that in order to facilitate creating what you need to in the frame. But that's the order, right? Another thing that he said that's really great is never waste an establishing shot on establishing something. Now, establishing shots are kind of a thing of the past now in a way, although there's another kind of form of it now in movies. But what he means is always think about the economy of what you're using so that it'll have maximum impact when you show it, and don't waste it, or repeat it, too many times. That's a great lesson. So you never see, for instance, in the movie, the outside of Diane's house until very late in the movie. I wanted to use it sparingly when I felt like it really made sense and it would really pay off. Same thing, we only see her behind the wheel of a car. There's a lot of driving in the movie, but we only see her from behind the wheel of the car once at a very key moment in the movie. Another way of answering your question is that the experience of making the documentaries, those were not my images that I was working with other than the interviews with people, but you have to make, it's deceptive with clips, you have to make your own movie. So you can't count on the clips to stand in for the whole movie that they come from. That's a mistake that I think happens in a lot of docs about filmmaking or in a lot of clip reels. That's why a lot of clip reels are so boring. So, and also the people who are doing talking heads can't just be people doing talking heads. And so it all has to kind of come alive as a movie. And in that way, it was related. It's also that also relates back to the Hitchcock thing. Think about how things work together and the economy of it. You know. Thanks.
I never
was
heard
awesome.
that. Don't waste an establishing shot. And like thinking about Hitchcock's movies now, it's absolutely true. Like
Yeah.
if you look at even something like The Birds, the establishing shot of the city establishes so much more than the city in that one sort of
You mean
panning
the
shot.
Bodega Bay? Oh,
Right in the beginning when she's
Yes.
walking off the bus in San Francisco and
Yes.
you see like a quick sign that says San Francisco and then it's her all the way into the flower shop. So you
Yeah.
have like city, her, flower shop all in one shot.
Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, you know, it's you could point to any given film of his, and you see an extreme economy of means. It's a real lesson.
It's a real like disservice to I think other filmmakers or people who are studying film that he's only credited like he's viewed as a suspense filmmaker, even though that's primarily like what he made. I think you can watch his movies for just how to build sequences, how to just tell mini stories inside of a larger story.
I agree, and you can also watch his movies for an understanding of acting. And the whole thing about actors being cattle is a complete smokescreen that he invented to kind of like throw people off the trail. You cannot get the kinds of performances that he got from Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant and Claude Rains and Notorious and just sit there, in your director's chair and fall asleep and let the actors do what they're going to do and let the cameraman frame it according to your storyboards. It's just not true. It's not possible. And so within the, he did it he filmed people. He worked with the actors in very, very small and precise increments. Things have, are quite different from that now, but still, he's a lesson in a lot of ways.
I love the film. Congratulations, Ken. Congratulations,
Thanks,
Jake.
man.
It opens
Thank
this Friday, right?
Yeah,
People can see it.
yeah.
How can people see it?
Here in New York at IFC and
Great.
at BAM and then in LA at the Nuart and, and then points, in between after.
Congratulations. The movie's called Diane. Go see it and give them a huge round of applause for being here. Thanks, guys.